Hi guys, in Anabolic. Today we're gonna talk about the lat pull down. Without further ado, I'm just gonna go through the details from bottom to top, tell you how you should perform it, what differences it makes when you're changing the angle of your body position, and everything else. So first of all, when you sit down, I see a lot of people bringing it high up and stay on the toes. You might not think that there is any problem with this, but the problem is, again, you do not want the tension and your focus to be on here. If you feel any pain or tightness, or just you're squeezing the muscle so hard, or you feel any pain in your toes, it's just gonna distract you. Aside from that, you want all your feet to be stable in the ground so you can have as much momentum as you want. And although they are stable, but still for your stability and making you focus on the exercise, it's better to have them flat on the ground. And most of the gyms have this pad in here, which is just around shoulder width apart. But if your gym had something wider, it's better to use it a little bit wider so you have more focus and balance. But if it's just little, make sure you come a little bit forward. If this is not too much back, come a little forward, make your feet wider. So when you go really narrow, it's just you might go to the side. But when the feet position is a little bit wide, you're gonna be more focused and you're gonna pay less attention about your core stability and also your balance. So become a little bit higher. And still, we're gonna talk about the pads. You see, it's good if you just push to the pad just a little bit. This is a still a little bit. So good. This is a good position for me, so I do not bring the heels up. You might be able to get more power if you just push your knees to this pad, but you've got to understand something else. The hip flexors, the muscle that I talked about them most of the time, which come from here, by the hip flexors, I mean the main two hip flexors. I'm talking about the main two. The iliopsoas, which is the iliacus muscle, and the psoas major muscle. These two muscles go all the way down, and one of them comes to your iliacus, one of them goes to your spine, L5 to L1. And when you just push too hard to this pad, you're using a lot of that, and that causes your, especially the psoas major, causes your spine to come forward, and that could make not only problem with your health, that could jeopardize your training as well, because you're not using the muscle and stretching the muscle to the full capacity. So make sure you're just pushing a little bit to make yourself stable, but do not overdo it. I'm gonna give you a tip on how you can do it better and understand the focus on doing this exercise perfectly before you go ahead. We're gonna come a little bit forward, higher. You come to the angle of your body. You see, this exercise is for the back, but as I have said a couple of times, you cannot just target one muscle, especially when it comes to something like this. When you use this machine, it doesn't matter what part of your body you're gonna be focusing on, depending on the angle. You're gonna target the hands, the bicep, brachialis, brachioradialis, the back, and also the shoulders, the rear delts as well. So it only matters on how much you're doing the exercise with each muscle. So the changing of the angle is not just gonna stop one muscle working. They're all gonna work in any way. It's just how much they're helping you do this exercise. When you go back, the more you go back, the focus is gonna be higher. So you're gonna shift the focus more higher, so it's gonna be less on your lats. But depending on the hand positioning, if your hand positioning is supinated like this, and you grab it, bring it down, you're gonna feel it more down. But when the hand positioning comes to the other side, because the position of the elbow changes when you do this compared to this, because of that, with the supination, you're gonna target lower parts more, with the pronation, you're gonna target a higher parts. But the angle of the body matters as well. So the more you go back, the more you're gonna target the higher parts, and the more you come front, you're gonna target more the downside as well. So another thing, we talked about supination and pronation as well. It's how you grab the ball. If you grab it really narrow, something like this. Now we are talking about the pronation right now. You're gonna use the lats, of course. You're gonna get a lot more stretch on the lats because this can go higher compared to this. But the thing is, because your hands are like this is not a problem, this is just the differences. You're gonna target more your arms as well. So your bicep is gonna come into work, your brachialis and brachioradialis are gonna come into work. Also, you might feel that because you've got more stretch here, when you go all the way up, you feel a little bit weaker compared to when you go a little bit wider. The more range of motion you have, the more stretch, and the further you can do the exercise. When the weight gets heavier, it's going to be harder because the muscle is weakest, it is most contracted. But of course, when it's more stretched, so keep that in mind. You might not be able to perform it as heavy when you're narrow compared to when you're wide. The other thing is, for the same position, when you're narrow, when you just supinate, you're gonna target the arms more. And there is also another risk factor to that. You see, when you go heavy and you're supinated, which means that your palms are facing upwards when they're in front of you, if the weight is heavy because you're using a lot more biceps, it is really risky for your biceps to get torn or just get overall injuries. Because you see, when I do this, my bicep is doing a lot of work. But when I do this, other muscles, which we talked about, brachialis, brachioradialis, come into work, and they are normally stronger because the forearm is usually able to perform better than the bicep itself. So that's why a lot of bodybuilders, when they want to go heavy, even doing the rows, they prefer to do it supinated so they don't harm themselves instead of pronated instead of supinated. So keep that in mind as well. If you're going light, it's alright, but if you're going heavy, this is just a lot of pressure on the biceps. So we're gonna go a little bit wider. This is something in between, so it's gonna target your lats, also target your back muscles in the back, the higher part, the infraspinatus, the teres major, even the rotator cuff muscles, the more wider you go. Also, the strength, as we said, is gonna be more. And just the thing is, the more wider you go, it is not good to be supinated. And the problem is not just the biceps, but the majority of these bars, as you can see, if I'm just gonna be wide like this, as you can see the hand positioning, it's just in an awkward position. It's not anatomically good for you to lift, especially heavy weights, in a position that your body does not prefer. It can cause problems. So the wider, I could probably say, the wider you go from your shoulder width. So my shoulder width is gonna be, you see, straight. It's gonna be something like this. The wider I go from this, it's not good for me to have it supinated. So it's safer for me to keep it like this. And we're gonna go wide all the way. Again, I'm pronated this way. My range of motion is less, as you can see. Let me do it again. Compared to because my range of motion is a little bit more, and of course this is a little bit short for me, so if it's a little bit higher, I'm not gonna be able to go higher than this with the my hands wide. But if it's like this, I'm gonna be able to move it more. So aside from that, again, no supination. I'm gonna hit the lower lats more, and the middle part of my body more. And the only thing is, if you had anything really bigger than this one, it is not good to go that much wide as well, because if the range of motion is, just think that if there was something like this and I was doing the lat pull down, it's just the range of motion is going to be really low. Also, it's going to be something that anatomically your body does not prefer. So we talked about the supination as well, how you should, when you should be supinated, when you should be pronated. Now we're gonna take the angle a little bit backwards. We're gonna start with the pronated. When you go back, one of the main muscles that really comes in to work, which is really weak in a lot of people, is the rhomboid muscles. These muscles come between your scapula, and they cause the retraction of the shoulder blades. So when you do this, when you bring the shoulder blades back, it's just, or your scapula, it just brings them together. And a lot of people, because of office works or whatever, being on the phone or anything like this, they go into this kyphosis position, or just a protraction of the shoulder blades, and they're like this, and these muscles get stretched a lot and they become really weak. So it really is good to work these muscles. And when you go back, one of the main muscles you work with are these muscles. One of the other muscles that really comes in into work, and it really works, it doesn't move a lot, it just works as a stabilizer, is the three main paraspinal muscles. We've talked about them. I have a video about the paraspinal muscles as well. They are also called the spine erectors. There are three muscles which come all the way from here to your neck, and they help your vertebrae and your rib cage come up. And when you're all the way back and this weight is pulling you up and you're just keeping yourself back, it's like a back extension, but you're just holding it. Still, you're using these muscles to avoid you coming forward, or avoid just flexion of the thoracic spine. So you're not doing this, you're just keeping yourself back. It really works on them. It doesn't matter, pronated, supinated, which place you're grabbing the bar, because you're all the way back, you're gonna use these muscles. We're gonna go a little bit wider. Again, this is gonna be something in the middle of this and this. So the muscles are going to be, the work that you do with the muscles is going to be divided. The thing is, again, no supination here. When you do it pronated with a wide grip, the more wider you go, you're going to target a lot more rear delts. Of course, you're going to use the rhomboid as well, but the more wider you go, because your shoulder blades are not moving around, because of that, you're gonna use a lot less rhomboids, even infraspinatus, and also even the traps, because they stabilize your shoulder blades, they're gonna be working less because the shoulder blade is not moving that much. So the more wider you go, you're gonna target a lot more shoulder. The more narrow you go, it's gonna be less shoulder, but the muscles in between here, this area, are gonna be working a lot more. Another thing, if you're targeting the rhomboid muscle, which is mainly two parts, but generally it's called rhomboid, you can move the shoulder blade as well. I'm gonna show you what I mean. You see, when I come forward, I let my shoulder come in front of my chest as well. If I want to target more back, it's better to keep the shoulder stable. But if I want to target the rhomboids, I'm going to let it come forward and all the way. I'm going to show you the difference once again. So first we're going to target for 2 reps, I'm going to target the rhomboids. Then I'm just going to use the rhomboids as a stability and then target more my lats. So 2 reps rhomboids. Now the lats. Now we come to the tip that I talked to you about. If it's your first time performing this exercise, if you do not know how much you should push the pad, or if you're using the hip flexors a lot or not, you can do it in a reverse motion. And of course, when you're new, you're usually weak in the back as well, just for stability and keeping you back. And when you wanna go all the way back, like this, if the weight is a little bit heavy, it's gonna be hard for you to keep the back straight, so you're gonna be hunched over. When you come back all the way, and you bring your hip forward, and do this exercise like this, because you're already, this weight is coming down, there is nothing to just make you hunch your back. It might, if the weight is a lot heavy, gonna bring you up, but it's not gonna bring you forward. It's just gonna bring you up. But the thing is, if you're new to this exercise, it's gonna be, you're not gonna use a lot of weight, so you should not worry about that. The only muscle that's gonna come into play a lot more in this form is your abs, because you need to make sure that you're up in the air and not down. So you're gonna use the abs more. I'm gonna show you what I mean. So you see, in this position, I do not need to worry about coming forward, because I'm going up. If the weight is heavy, I'm just gonna go up. I'm not gonna come forward. And aside from that, I'm not gonna use any hip flexors, because my legs are gonna be high. So if I use my hip flexors, they're gonna come high and it's just gonna destroy the focus. So legs wide, I go back. You can even lay on the pad if it's hard for your abs. If you do not have the strength in your abs to keep yourself in the air, just lay on the pad. You can change the degree here as well. So and again, when you go to that position, everything is gonna be the same. The supination is gonna be, I'm not gonna say bad, but if this is heavy and you're not good with it, and especially you're using a lot of momentum, it's gonna be bad for the biceps. You're gonna, 90% of the time, you're gonna target the same muscles that we talked about when you are performing with the legs on the pad or in front. The only thing is the core activation which comes into play. You should just know that, again, it's not just about this exercise, about any exercise. Do not use momentum. Do not use momentum. Always make sure that you're controlling the weight, especially when I see that young teenagers, especially, they wanna just build a good physique. You do not need to be lifting heavy. It's better to lift a lot light, but controlled, than just lift heavy. It's not gonna be good for the joints, it's not gonna be good for your overall muscle growth, and it's not even gonna be good for your hormones as well. You're just putting your body under a lot of stress. The last thing that, again, is related to the momentum and just cheating in some way is this exercise becomes risky when you are using a lot of weight and you're just bringing all the shoulder blade up, like this. I'm not going to show you totally, but you're gonna get the idea. If the weight is a lot heavy and you go all the way back with cheating and you just let it come all the way up, if your lats do not, or other muscles involved in this exercise, do not have the strength to stabilize it or just control it all the way through, it's your shoulder that's gonna be hurt. You're gonna cause a lot of problem. If you just do it a lot of times with this position, you're gonna cause bursitis, tendonitis, and especially shoulder impingement. So make sure you control it all the way. And if you like this video, make sure you leave your comments and thumbs up below and share it with your friends if you want. Kiana Walik, everyone.